Recording. Alright. Okay. So now let's have a little bit of review of what we have learned in the last class. So can someone still remember what we have gone through in the last class?
Score.
Yeah, score. Yeah, score. We learned how to keep tracking of the score. Maybe it's more about the problem of what kind of data structure you want to use, or how you're gonna use your GUI to make them display to the users, right? And when we talk about that score, this one thing I tried is because we have that score, and after we log out, I will quit the game. If we re-enter the game, we kind of want the score to still be there instead of just disappear. Okay, so what do we have to do in order to have that score?
Save it to a file.
Yeah, save to a file. But what we did is that we used a thing called player pref. If you remember that, right? We use that thing called player pref, so that you can just call it's maybe it's an easy hack of the saving thing. If you do not want to save a whole lot of stuff, and you can just call the player pref to save an integer, to save a float, things like that, right? If you remember, it's a set float, and you give the name of that variable and you give the value of that variable. Then you can save and load by just calling the player pref. But what behind the player pref is the Unity editor. It has a specific path, file path, to save all those data, and the path is different from on different platform. Maybe in the Windows, it can be under your C drive or documents, apps, something like that. But if it's in the Mac, it's gonna be a different. So it's just some internal. You do not have control over the file path. Where does Unity save that? You do not have the control. So. But most of the time when we play the game, that's not the case, right? When we play the game can save the file under its folder and anywhere. Maybe it's a data folder or something like that, right? So, yeah. You may want to ask the question that what we're going to learn is about how to save the file. Save the scores, save your game to a text file today. And next day, the next class is going to be the XML file. Yeah. You may want to ask a question. So, if we have the player pref, seems that we can save a lot of data already. It can be integer, float, and we can successfully load them into our game scene. But why do we still need this? Why do we still want to save our game to a file, to a text file? Why?
Using player prefs in the hidden app data folder, so whenever you like switch computers, it does the switch as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one important reason. One of the important reasons. Yeah. Usually we won't keep the things under that folder, so that when you switch to another platform, you can still have that XML file, that data file available to you. Or if you want to save something in the cloud, maybe that's a more popular way. But what you do not want to do is that the player pref. It is easy and it's convenient, but it still has some problem there. You cannot just move to another platform and still get that data, right? And you cannot if you're doing saving to an XML file, which you want. XML is a format that can be easily accessed by other applications as well. So let's kind of share the format, so other application can also understand what you want to save. Okay, so and you kind of want to do that, and sometimes the file can be very large. You do not just want to save maybe integer, float, or you want to save something else, maybe some your data format, right? So if you're using the save to a file, that gives you all this flexibility, right? So, and also you have the control of over where do you want to put those data files, no matter what kind of format it is, XML or text file. You can just place it under your game folder, right? And when you move your game folder anywhere, maybe somehow, yeah, you can still have that that data folder. Yeah. When you kind of copy one copy your game folder from one Windows machine to another one, you still have the executable file and you still have those data files there. So yeah, and most of the time, most of the game, I think we do have this functionality to save the data. So yeah, it's there's no need to emphasize how important it is to save a game. Okay, so today we're going to learn about how can we save a data to the file, and how can we also next class we will do an XML file. That's yeah, more formal way of saving. Okay, so now let's look at this thing. This is a game scene we're going to use today and next week. So that's the first thing we want to save. It's a level, a kills, runs won, and runs lost. So let's start with this. So inside this game, what do we have? We have this stats. Right? We have this cube. So if we want to save this game, it's going to be easy, right? It's just a cube and the stats, right? So, right. Before we learn that, do you ever have any experiences, or you can come with any idea how are we going to save those things? Let's just start with this stats. Forget about this cube first. So if I want you to do this project, what will you do first?
Would we use like stream reader and stream writer to write the file?
Yes, correct. So we are doing the scripting in the C#. So we have a lot of things that's already available to us. It's defined by that .NET platform, the C# thing. So we already have a stream reader and stream writer. So what is stream? Stream is like you kind of serialize what you want to save and then write it to a file. That's how we can use a stream writer. And reader is like you read a file from your disk or some other memory. You read that file and you serialize that file like a serial of any kind of code. Right? So we use a stream reader and stream writer to put things onto our disk. But what do you want to do? And what do you want to save? How? What do you want to save? What do you want to write inside that file?
Probably just the numbers and half the script.
Yes, just the numbers. Yeah, we want to save the numbers, right? And yeah, we want to save the numbers definitely. So now let's try something. Okay. Let's see how this demo working initially. So this is the folder. This is a folder of this project. Okay. So if you go to this chapter 7, we go to this chapter 7, you'll find this. There are 2 of the files. That's we want to delete. What we want to delete. Okay. Now, since we have this 1,000, 200, 150, and 50, we want to write it to a file. Now, this demo has already have this. Yeah, you just press I, and then press O. Yeah. So we have this file written on disk like this. Now let's see what kind of file it is. So it's pretty simple. What I just used is I remember these level, kills, run, won, runs, lost, and its number. I write it to a text file. That's easy to understand both for you and maybe for the decoder. Right? If you are using your program, your scripting to reload this into your game scene, you kind of need to decode and put the value to the correct place, right? Okay, so that's what we did here. And in another folder, in this data folder, we have this input file. Okay, so this is a 20, 400, 300, and 100. This is another thing. This is what I want to read into my game scene. So if you want to see here, let's change the 200 maybe to 5,000 level and save. And in the game scene, you can see right now it's 20, 400, 300, 100. But if I load something into the scene, right now what I define is if I press I can load things into the scene. So if I press I, see what's happening. See, the level becomes 5,000. So that's that's a loading functionality. You load a game profile and override the current one in your game scene. Okay, so that two functionality is pretty simple. It's a very basic way of writing to a file and read from file, saving and loading. Okay, now let's see how I did that. It's in the flatsavesystem.cs. Okay, so first I have a script. It's called save handler. It's handling all the reaction to the keys. Right. So let's press O. We send message to that script we want to write to file. And if I press I, it's a read from file. Okay, and it send message. Since this flat save system.cs, this script is attached to the main camera. Do you remember when we are doing this send message, what's going to happen?
Does the function?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay. Say here we have a camera. We have a main camera here, and then we send a message to that camera. What's going to happen? If we send read file to the camera.
It executes the read file function on the scripts attached.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It executes the read file function on the scripts that's attached to the main camera. So all the scripts that attach to the camera, if it has a function called read file, it will be executed by this statement. Okay, remember, yeah, kind of refresh that knowledge. Okay, so here if I press O, what's gonna happen is write to file. So we only have this. So this write to file will be called. Okay. Now let's okay, it's fine. Okay, we don't need this part yet. Okay, so now let's look at here. Write to file. What we're doing in this functionality is first we check if the save file directory exists, right? If it's not exists, we create that file directory. So that's important because you don't want to save to like nowhere. If that place cannot be recognized, that file, that folder doesn't exist, you kind of want to create that directory. So S directory is a variable that holds the file path you want to save your data. Okay, so if you see here, it's just a string. See that directory. What this directory looks like? Now let's see. So it's S directory chapter 7. So that explains why chapter 7. So this is a folder. There's a inside this game folder. There's another subfolder called chapter 7 here. Right? And inside this chapter 7, we have all the files saved. We just write. Okay, so that explains why we are saving to the chapter 7 folder, because here we define this S directory as chapter 7. If we define something else, it will create another folder and save things to that folder. Yes. Okay, so here what we did is a directory exists, and it doesn't exist, we'll create one. And then we use stream writer. That's what you have mentioned, the stream writer. You do not have to implement your own stream writer by defining how you communicate with the operating system, how you're gonna write bit by bit. That's not the case. So we already have a stream writer already defined in the C# for you. But in order to use that stream writer and stream reader and file stream, that's the three things we want to use. In order to use that, those classes are all defined here. System.io in this package. So if you want to use stream writer, remember to include using the system.io, that package of C#, so that the system, when it's doing the compiling, loading, it knows where to find all the classes of the stream writer. Okay, so here we define the stream writer. We initialize a new stream writer with a file stream. File stream is another thing. When we are trying to use the stream writer, we need to tell the writer where do you want to write, and we tell it through this file stream. Okay. Actually, what I want to do is this. Okay. So first we need a file stream. Then we use that file stream to create a new stream writer. And when we initialize this file stream, what we are doing is we tell the directory and the mode of the file. So the mode of the file, if you hit dot here, you can see we have append, create, and create new, right? So we can tell the difference. We can kind of tell the difference. If we're doing the append, it's not going to override that file. If that file already exists, it's going to write to the end of the file. So that's something called append, right? But if it's create, what happens? It will override. It will override. Override. If that file doesn't exist, it will create that file and write into the file from the beginning of that file. But if it already exists, it will remove the original one and write a new one. And so, what is create new? Can you think what's the difference between create and create new? Have you ever used C# stream writer, file stream?
If create throws an error because the file already exists, create new just
yes.
overwrite the file.
Exactly. Exactly. So you had used that before? So create new. Yeah, it's the thing that, as you mentioned, it's gonna throw an error if that file already exists, because it's only create new file. But if it already exists, then throw an arrow. Okay. So here, what we want to use, yes, create new. We just want to use create. Okay. And then this is basically the algorithm how you save your file, right? So what we did is what we want to save in the stat tracker. Stat tracker is here. So the item names and value. What are the item names and value is this. So those are the item names. Those are the value. So we call this functions. We call those call this write function. The write function will check with the status script what is the name and the value you want to save. Then what it does is it uses a loop. It loops through that name, the length of the names, and then it write the name and it write the value. But when you kind of write the value, you need to call this dot to string because those value are integer. What we want to write into this write line, we write line by line. Okay, we write into the file line by line. So whatever you put into that line, that file, it should be a string. Yeah. So if it's integer, you convert integer to the string. Okay. It's still going to be a 12, 20 there, but it's but it's string, yeah, instead of just an integer. Okay, so that when you read, you can guess what we will do is we read that string and convert that string into its original format, into the integer, right? Okay. So yeah, that's a very simple way to write it. Okay, just line by line. And here, let's not talk about this for now. And in this read file, so it's also the same. We read from the directory plus the file name, and then we use a for loop. What we want to read is just that value. If you remember, we save both the name, right, the name and the value. So the assumption is we save everything in the order. We keep that order. We reserve the order in the game thing, and then when we load through the same order, so that when we are doing the load, we just use this folder. It's get the string items.net. So that's 4. So it loops through that 4 lines, and then it gets the value. The string reader.read line. It reads a line, and then it converts that value as this convert value and put that value to the string items value. So that's yeah. So it's a little bit confusing here because what we save and what we load is not the same thing. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's a little bit confusing. What we load is here in flat file. It's 500, 400, 300, 100, right? But if we put this we remove the original one, change this as in flat file. Let's see. This in flat file is looks like this. Will this work? Yeah, this won't work. It will throw some arrow. Let's see. If we press in, see, input string was not in the correct format, right? That's because what we save is in this format. But our assumption, yes.
You could in C# you have the string split method. You could do that.
That's what I'm going to talk about. Right. So the system is assuming that when we read this is this kind of format, so that it will read and load them into the system, right? Right now, if we press I, no error will be there. Okay. All right. So it's different. So we kind of need to modify this read file method to make it match what we saved. Okay. So that we will use a thing called split. That's what you mentioned. Thank you. Yeah. So remember, what we write is something like this. Okay. Then what we are getting when we are doing the read line, when we're using this stream reader here, stream reader SI, we need a stream reader with a path, okay, and the file name. So when we are calling this stream reader read line, what we're getting is this name and the value. Yeah. So what we want. But what we can tell from here is something. We often use this format: the name, and then some kind of sort of split between the name and the value, right? Between the name and value. You can define anything, any symbol here, just. Yeah, but what we use is this. You can also use period, anything. But sometimes it's not recommended to use period, because if you are saving a sentence, sometimes there's a lot of period there, right? So what I do is I define some very special, when I was doing save some data, I define some very special splitter, like hashtag something, sentence, hashtag, something like that. But here, let's use this simple one. So, because the value and the name has already been, they're always been splitted by this symbol. So when we read this line, we can kind of first, maybe we can define a string line, temp line, temporary line goes to sr dot read line, right? So we have a line saved to here, and then what we do is string the element equals to 10 line dot split. Okay, then we actually have this thing here. So what we do is here, instead of convert this whole line, what do we put here now? What do we want to put here? Yeah, so before we are converting the whole line into this integer, but now first we read this line and then we split the line into an array of strings by split with this symbol. So what this does is this, if we calling the split function, what happen is actually it take this line and it split this line into two parts. First is this the thing before the symbol, and the thing before the splitter, and the thing after the split symbol. Okay, so if we split this line, it will become an array of two elements. First element is level, second element is 20. And then if we have another split here, if we have 6, if we call split to this line, it will have a 3 elements array returned. Okay, but now we always have our 2 elements string array. So here is the elements. Actually, what this hold is 2 elements. First is the name, the second element is the value. So here we want to give the value to the screen item value I in order to reinitialize them into the game thing. So what do we put here?
The second element.
The parentheses. The second element? Any other different idea? Yes, we do put the second elements. But if we want to put the second elements, do we put 2 here? 1, yes. Correct. Yeah. So anyone who doesn't understand why we put 1 here instead of 2? You all understand the difference, right? Okay. We start from 0. Yeah, okay, that's a basic, something basic. Okay, so here we should be able to load. With this function, we should be able to load. We should be able to load this file format. Okay, and now let's try. See, now let's define something cool. 900. Let's have some kills, big kills. Okay. Alright, so if we press I, hopefully we can have this kills to that number. No, it's not. Value is too large. Okay, yeah. Why the value is too large? Can somebody tell me?
You can only have some, because the integer can only hold so many precision.
Yeah, it overflowed. So, see here, this is the integer 23. So we have 22 bits, 32 bits. 32 bits integer. So it only has 32 bits. It's 1010. The maximum, we have a limit over there. So it's definitely less than this. So now let's use 9999. This isn't gonna work. Yeah, I promise you this doesn't work. Okay, now it's 200. If we press I, yeah, it changed. Okay, so that's we read and write. We're using the same format assumption there, but sometime we have something tricky, like when we are doing the write, we write not in that order. We write in a different order, like this. We put the kills somewhere here, alright, and then we keep everything else the same. Now if we are doing the read, will that show correctly? Will that still show the kills of 9,999? Let's see. So what's going to become 9999? Yeah, okay, let's see. Yeah, so it's 900, 300, 100, 9999. So why this is happening is easy, because we assume that when we're doing the writing, we're doing in order, so that we're reading order. So here the problem is now read, right? We cannot just read. But when we are doing the read, we need to solve a problem that we should not assume that order has been reserved. So, what can we do? If we suppose now the write and read, they are implemented by different programmer, okay, and I have no communication with that guy, but the only thing, I cannot ask him to preserve the order, right? What I can only do is make my read file method stronger in order to handle that situation. The situation, I mean, the data has been saved without some certain pattern order, without the order preserved. So what can we do here in this read file? What can we do?
You need to take your first element and examine it to make sure it matches up with the data you're trying to.
Yeah, the idea is you want kind of because here you see we have this line elements here. The second element is the value we want, but the first element is the name of that value. Okay, so we want to take advantage of that first element. We have the information there. So what do? we exam. Okay, how do we do that? So we have a read a value, we have a name, we have a value.
Do a switch statement.
Switch. So what we have here in this stat tracker is we have this string, we have a value, and we have this item name. It's an array of string. We have an array of string and an array of this value, right?
You could just make a for loop if the final first element
Yeah.
matches the
That's an easy way, yeah. We do that. Let's do that this way. We use the for loop. Okay. So let's see, how do we do that? We have this line here, and then we split this line. Here we can just do that. So 4. Right, we kind of want to see how can we do that. How can we do where is the index? Where is the correct index we want to put this value into? Right. Let's assume it's J. So we start from 0. We loop through to see which index match the name I just read. Right. So J. Same. We want to loop through that names and J++, right? And then we put this here. If, right? If so what we want to do is still this. We want to convert the value and put the value into that, but we need a condition here. We're trying to find the match, right? So we compare the name. Sorry. So this holds all the name and J dot equals. What do we put here?
line elements.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Line elements, the first element, so we put 0 here, right? So if we find a match, we loop through that. Names. If we find a match, we kind of put the value. So here is not I, it should be J. Right? Because J is the thing we want to find, right? If we find the J, then if we find this J, then we put this value to the Jth element of that item value array. Also, we want to break. Why we want to break? Because if we find a match, there's no need to go through the rest of it, right? Okay, hopefully this will work. Let's see. Right now, kills 9999. If we put something, if we put level, okay, we put level down here. So right now the order has been totally randomized. Okay. Say level 1000 kills 200. So after we load, we want to see the level as 900. We want to see the kills as 9999 and 300, 100. The one lost. Okay. So guess, are we gonna make it or not? Yeah, I think so, but I'm not sure. Okay, it works. Right? So the level is 9999, kills, and level is 900, kills 999, and 300 and 100 won and lost. Okay, that's nice. So that's how we do that. Let's see that again. So what do we do? So it's kind of looks complicated because there's a for loop inside another for loop. But let's make it clear. So the for loop outside is we read them line by line, but the for loop inside is when we have a line, we kind of want to match that line to the correct position, so that every time we read a line, we loop through to see where do we want to put it. Okay, so that even the string writer, the game saver, they do some randomized order there. We can still have strong enough functionality here to read all the files. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And application data path. Yeah, and another thing I want to mention here, this is something I want you to remember. Just it's not here. Application dot data path. Right. So there's something defined here. It's called application.dataPath. So that's basically the path of your game folder. So if we are running this, you should be able to see what is the data path. It's going to be outputted to the console. Okay, so this is the data path. So it's going to be the game folder assets. It's something like here, assets. This is if you want to get the path to this assets, you can just call this application.dataPath, so that you can have the access here. So if you want to save something inside the assets folder, and you do not know, you're not very clear what is actually the path of it, maybe absolute path of it, you can just use this application.dataPath. What it output is just like this. See, it's absolute path. No, it's not absolute path. It will give you the absolute path of it, but every time when you call this, it's actually relative, because it's going to change from different platform to different. If you put it somewhere else, see, right now because where I locate this project folder, so it's gonna be in my D drive, teaching 2017 for CGDD 3103, things like something like this. Okay, but if I move it somewhere else, it's gonna output different things there. Okay, so it's just something I want you to be aware of. To maybe it will make your job easier sometime. That's how we read and write. Alright, and next we are going to talk about, we already talked about stream writer, file stream, file mode. We talked about file mode already. Okay. So do we have any questions so far in terms of the read and write? We use stream writer, right? Yeah, difference between the stream read and stream writer. The stream reader, when you initialize the stream reader, you just give this file directory the file name, and then it can read that file line by line. However, when you're doing the stream writer, we need one more step. If you remember here, this is the same. We have the stream writer. If we want to initialize the stream writer here, we need a file stream first. And if we initialize the file stream, we give this path and definable. Okay, remember, not just initialize the stream writer with this file path. Okay, we need one more step there. Write is kind of more complicated than the reader. Reader should be very simple, right? So we read, and yeah, this is going to be a stronger read method which can identify the order to correct the order. Okay, and here let me talk something more about this write. Okay, so now let's see. So right now we have this stats, level, kills, round 1 lost. But this seems not the only thing we want to save. Right? Not the only thing we want to save. We also have a game object there. Right? Okay, if we want also to preserve the location of that cube, can we do that? Sure, we can. And yeah, how do we do that? We want to save them.
Just save the transform.
Yes, as transform. We save the transform dot position dot x, transform dot position dot y. We want to save them separately, right? Like what we have here. Let me see if this is actually working. Okay, so it's here. Right line. It should not be here because it's within that loop. Yeah, I believe this won't work because this transform is a transform of the main camera. So if we want to save the cube, we do need another thing here. We need this cube here as this player. So now, what? XML?
You put that to the XML script on the main camera, not the.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes that happens. Okay, here we just need a player. Right now run this and we'll press O. We will have this. See, we save the level, kills, round 1, round lost, and 0, 1, and this negative 6.5 something. Yeah. So that's the position. That's the position of that cube or that enemy or player. That's how you save it. And when you load it, you can just load them and put that value, convert that value as a float, and assign the value to that cube. And let's try. Yep. Okay. Here. Yeah. Here, if we also want to read this into the system, and now what we are doing is this for loop. We loop through everything here, loop through the length of the screen item name. So it's gonna be 4. But here now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines, right? So we cannot do it this way anymore, because it's gonna be 4. Then that's the end. What we need to do is remove this. What do we do here? When you want to read everything in that file, every line, you do not use a for loop, because basically you do not know how many lines are there. So we still want to use loop. Yes, while loop. So then what we do is what's the condition? What's going to be the condition? Yeah. Don't forget, this is you're reading the next line. And then it will go back after we read the first line and we do something here, and then we read the second line. We go to this model to see if we do have second line. If we have second line, we do something. We read the third line. We go back here to see if we do have third line. Okay. So that's the logic here. Split. Yeah, so if we split, that won't have the split. Yeah. What we want to do. We want to put this for loop inside. If we have more than one element there, then we are trying to check the name. But if we read to this line, we only have one thing here. It won't. If we call it split, it won't happen. We do not have that 2 elements. So what we do is just y, and z. What we do is if it's more than one, if it's less than one. Yeah. So we want assign, we kind of want assign the x, y, and z. So right now let's just do this. Player dot transform dot position dot x. Okay, and since we already have that, just keep read the line. So if we actually reach here, it should be read this, put them, all of them into the x, y, and z, and then we read another line, it should not go through this while loop again. See? Yeah. Yeah, it looks like this way. Yeah. Okay, now let's put this into our data. Let's see if that works. Thank you. Yeah? Okay, 90% maybe it will work. Do I, yeah. What's happening here? End of file. This is point. Yeah, we should have a
while not null, do while has next.
What do you mean? While is here, okay. this is the using, yes, this is a while, and this is correct. So we do need to have another thing here. How can we do that float? Just force the convert. Cannot modify a value type, return value. Okay. So what we want to do is okay. Now, yeah. All right. Yeah, we need kind of run this, and we change the position a little bit. Yeah, somewhere down here, and then we save it. Let's see if we do save that successfully. Yes. Okay, and in data. Yeah. Okay, it has some issue in the saving. Let me fix that in the next class. But okay, so the idea behind this is you save them and you load it according to the position, and you kind of make assumption of the format. But if you cannot make assumption, you need to make your method more general, okay, to adopt different conditions. Okay, and here's a little bug of this assign this those value. I will fix it and let you know in the next class. And that's it for this class, this handle. And next we will also talk about XML file, how you save them into XML. Okay, all right. Thank you so much.